Tomodachi Game, Chapter 19. The ones who stepped forward. The game room was quiet to quiet. The buzz of monitors had gone still. The cold robotic voices silenced, just for a moment. And in that rare moment of stillness, Yuuichi Katajiri stood alone, eyes fixed on the floor. The storm hadn't passed. It had only shifted. Everything was changing. The betrayal was done. The traitor had been unmasked. And now, a new kind of game was beginning. One where power didn't just lie in trust, but in choice. A new screen flickered to life, and the same suited man from the committee, his eyes forever hidden beneath its sharp hat brim, spoke again. Combat controlled. Dangerous. You have 72 hours. Build your team. 5 members. Your next challenge is no longer about surviving your friends. The pause. It's about defeating strangers. He just stared at the monitor, lips barely moving. Yuichi's fingers tightened into a fist. Defeating strangers meant that there were other survivors. Other groups. You really think they've got others, like us, other players just like them who had clawed their way through their own versions of hell. And now, they'd be brought together, not as allies, but as enemies. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was a tournament of trauma. Shio broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. So this was never just about money or debt, was it? People I can break, or who can break others. This isn't a team of friends. This was no longer about saving face or friendship. Yuuichi was assembling a war party. Yuuichi didn't turn to her. If they wanted a team, they'd have to seek them out, convince them, manipulate them, or force them. No, this is about control. Makoto leaned against the wall, still reeling from the emotional chaos of the last game. They were toys in a box, entertainment for some faceless committee. But Yuuichi, he was done being a piece. Tenji, eerily calm, chuckled under his breath. Of course they do. We were never the only ones. We were just lucky enough to be entertaining. His words sent a chill through the room. We need for more players, he said. But not just anyone. I need people I can read. Alone, silent, dangerous, he turned to them. It's a team of weapons. The atmosphere changed instantly, each move calculated, each objective tied to a psychological trigger. Makoto hated it. He didn't say it aloud, but his discomfort was written all over his face. The monitor displayed new instructions, encrypted locations, names, vague references to past games and files. The first name blinked on the screen. Sawada Kei, age, 17, status, survived game to notable, manipulative, high IQ. Expelled from school for blackmail. Yuuichi smirked. He's exactly the kind I need. Meanwhile, elsewhere, in another facility, under a completely different flickering light, a young man with glasses stared at a wall full of red string and photos. Sawada Kei. He smiled as he clicked off the feed on his computer. So they're coming for me. Back with Yuichi's group, tension was thick as Yuichi laid out his plan. You're starting to sound just like them, he muttered. Yuichi didn't flinch. If sounding like them is what it takes to destroy them, so be it. Shio looked up, worried. But what happens when we win? If we win, Yuichi stared out the small, sealed window. Then I burned their system to the ground. Late that night, Yutori sat alone, curled up, barely able to sleep. Her betrayal had been exposed. Her value questioned. But Yuichi hadn't kicked her out. Not yet. She remembered his words. I don't need loyalty. I need usefulness. She wasn't sure what was worse. Tears slipped down her cheek, silent and hot. He's her first piece. The next morning, Yuichi stood at the front of the group, bags packed, plans mapped out, and his eyes sharper than they'd ever been. We're heading out. First stop, Sawada Kei. I don't care if he joins us willingly or not. As they stepped out of the safe room and into a new, unknown zone, a final message blinked across the screen behind them. Game for initiated. This isn't about friendship anymore. It's about strategy, about survival, about rewriting the rules of the game itself. And Yuuichi Katajiri, the kind of place that still echoed with memories long after life had left it. Cracked tiles underfoot, rusted lockers, The scent of dust and something colder, like danger lingering in the air. Fears and scars, but none of them dared voice them now. Not when the game had changed. He wasn't just playing anymore. He was hunting. Tomodachi Game, Chapter 20. The genius joins the game. The wind howled like a warning as Yuuichi stepped into the abandoned school building. They had arrived. Makoto, Shio, Tenji, and Yutori followed behind him, each with their own doubts. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were hunting. And this was their first target. Sawada Kei, 17. Expelled. Brilliant. Dangerous. Sawada Kei looked up. Glasses reflecting pale blue light. He smiled. Not with warmth, but with curiosity. He had survived his own Tomodachi Game. Alone. Yuuichi had read everything the committee had leaked about him. Kei had manipulated 3 other players into betraying one another, only to backstab the last one himself in the final round. Clean, cold, clinical, and now they needed him. But recruiting someone like Kei wouldn't be as simple as asking. This wouldn't be a handshake agreement. Inside the building, the faint glow of laptop screens lit up a shadowy figure seated calmly behind a makeshift desk, made of school desks stacked together. So, Katajiri Yuuichi finally shows up. Yuuichi stepped forward, without flinching. You already know why I'm here. Kei nodded slowly. You're forming a team. You want the best. And you think I meant a pause. You're not wrong. Behind Yuuichi, Shio's eyes narrowed. Something about Kei felt off. Not threatening in the obvious way, but like a person who had studied human emotions from the outside. Learned to fake them, weaponize them. Makoto muttered under his breath. This guy gives me the creeps. Tenji just watched silently. Like two predators measuring each other, Kei stood up and approached slowly. The next game is team-based. And I am guessing the other teams are a team made up of emotionally fragile classmates with baggage. Let's skip the flattery. You need me because you're outnumbered. Yuuichi gave the faintest nod. Correct. Kei's smirk widened. So here's the problem. Why would I join a team that's already carrying dead weight? He glanced at Yutori, then Makoto. She cries. He doubts. You lie. And she doesn't know which one of you to believe anymore. Shio's jaw clenched. Yutori looked away, wounded. Makoto took a step forward, fist clenched. But Yuuichi didn't flinch. We're a weapon. I don't need perfection. I need unpredictability. Chaos. People who don't play by rules. Because we're not a team, he said quietly. And you? He added, stepping closer, eyes locked with keys. You're the most dangerous kind of chaos. The air thickened. Kei tilted his head, intrigued. You're not trying to lead. You're trying to manipulate me. Instead, he turned, walked to his laptop, and pulled up a file. One by one, images began appearing on screen. Surveillance footage from other games. Yuuichi smirked. Isn't that what you respect most? The test Kei didn't answer. Teams breaking down, players turning on each other. Winners gloating, losers collapsing. The other teams, they've killed for less. Kei tapped on one image. A boy screaming at the sky after realizing he had accidentally condemned his best friend to bankruptcy. This is the world you're entering, Kei said. Tenji finally spoke, and will kill for more, for the first time. Kei blinked just once. Then he smiled. A genuine one. I'll join. Relief was brief, because Kei added immediately. But under one condition. Yuuichi crossed his arms. Let's hear. Iki's voice dropped low. If I see weakness, I won't hesitate to cut it loose. I want full control of strategy for the next round. I give the orders, no interference. Makoto exploded. Are you insane? We don't even know you. But Yuuichi didn't hesitate. Deal. Everyone stared. You can't be serious, Shio began. But Yuuichi cut her off. This is war. We use the strongest weapon first. Kei chuckled softly. Smart. But just so you know, Katajiri. Yuichi's expression didn't change. Neither will I. The team grows in just like that. They had 5. The roster was shaky. Emotional trauma. betrayal scars, and now, a genius sociopath with no loyalty. But it didn't matter. They had firepower. As they walked out of the building, the screen at the exit door flashed a single message. Team registration confirmed. Katajiri Unit. Next phase begins in 48 hours. The game wasn't waiting, and neither was Yuuichi. Tomodachi Game. Chapter 21. The enemy you don't see. The rain had started again. Not heavy, just that soft, cold drizzle that soaks into your skin without you noticing, until you're freezing and miserable without knowing why. It pattered gently against the windows of the temporary safe house where Yuuichi and his newly assembled team had settled in. A borrowed bunker, 4 beds, a rusted kitchen sink, no warmth, no comfort, just strategy and silence. The countdown was on. 48 hours until the next phase of the Tomodachi Game. But time wasn't the problem. Locations, possible enemy positions, weak points, surveillance notes, none of it official. All of it stolen. He didn't even pretend to be humble about taking over strategy. He was a predator who knew he'd already been let off the leash. Trust was. Yuuichi sat at the head of the small table, his eyes scanning a crude map spread out before him. And that makes them more dangerous than any traitor you dealt with before. Across from him sat Sawada Kei, calm, calculating, amused. We don't know who we're up against, Kei said flatly, tapping a finger on the center of the map. Shiho leaned forward, brow furrowed. How many other teams are there? At least 4. Kei answered, without even checking. Minimum. Makoto shifted uncomfortably in his seat. And these teams, they've been through this already. She hadn't said much since they left the last game. Since her betrayal. More than once, Kei said with a thin smirk. Some of them might have killed before. Betrayed siblings, ruined lives. These aren't your classmates anymore. These are survivors. The room fell silent, even Tenji, who was rarely rattled by talk of mind games or manipulation, felt something cold settle in his stomach. Yutori, quiet as always, pulled her knees up to her chest. Behind him, inside the bunker, the others argued softly about food, rest, and how much they hated each other. He didn't care. Games are only fun when you don't know who's lying. Yuuichi glanced at her, then looked back at the map. We won't win by playing clean. You think I'm lying to my team? He paused, his voice lower now, deliberate. No, I think you're lying to yourself. We win by making sure no one can tell who's already lost. Later that night, monitors displayed every team, every movement, every whisper. Kei stood outside, leaning against the doorway, letting the rain mist across his face. But Yuuichi stepped out beside him, arms crossed. You're enjoying this? Kei didn't even hide the grin. Of course I am. A pause. That includes you, Yuuichi. Yuuichi looked back at him, deadpan. Kei shrugged. The rain continued to fall. Elsewhere, in a darkened control room, somewhere far beyond their reach, the Tomodachi Game committee watched it all play out. One man, faceless behind a monitor, tapped a note into his tablet. Katajiri Yuuichi. Status, unstable, but highly adaptable. Another leaned in, voice low. He'll need to be watched closely, because the truth was, this next game, it wasn't just about winning. It was a test. A test to see who among these survivors could be molded, turned into tools, or broken into examples. Back at the bunker, morning came. Gray and restless, the team gathered in silence, tired from a night of planning and paranoia. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. No one moved. Yuichi signaled for silence, and Kei grabbed a small kitchen knife. Not much, but something. Tenji crept toward the door, every movement cautious. Another knock. Yutori whispered. Maybe it's a mistake, but they all knew better. Yuichi took over. He opened the door. A boy stood there, soaked, shivering, bleeding from a small cut above his eyebrow. Please, he said, I'm from another team. I escaped. They're going to kill the rest. He collapsed. The new variable, they pulled the boy inside. Makoto patched him up. Shiho made him tea. He said his name was Reiji. That his team had turned on each other in the middle of the night after someone faked tan. Announcement from the committee. I ran when I realized it was a setup. He said, voice shaking. They were using us. Kate didn't trust him for a second. Too convenient, he muttered, bleeding, scared. And he finds us. But Yuuichi stared at Reiji quietly. He didn't dismiss him. Not yet. Let him rest. He said, then we test him. Tenji raised an eyebrow. How? Yuichi's voice dropped low. By seeing what he does when no one's watching. The game has already started later that day. While Reiji slept in the next room, Yuuichi gathered the group. We don't wait for the official start. The moment he knocked on that door, the next game began. He looked at each of them. We trust no one. We assume nothing. And if we want to win, his gaze darkened. We strike first. The screen near the door blinked to life one final time that night. Game 4 begins in 12 hours. But Yuuichi, he was already playing. End of chapter 21, the enemy has arrived. But are they outside the door or already inside? In chapter 22, Yuuichi tests Reiji. But what he uncovers might break the team before the game even begins.